Yo, what's going on, guys? And we are here live in Chicago. And if you guys are wondering what we're doing, yes, it is our 2023 NBA mock draft. We're here. We actually got media passes to cover the NBA draft combine. We'll be live at the draft combine tomorrow and the day after that. And on the drive here, we did our official first mock. We're just going to run through it right here with the official lottery. And you guys can take a little gander at everyone. We have Victor Wembanyama, Scoot Henderson, Brandon Miller, Amen Thompson. Is it Jarris? You said Jarris. Jarris. Cam Whitmore, Taylor Hendrick, Anthony Black, Asar Thompson, Grady Dick, Jet Howard, Kassan Wallace, Jordan Hawkins, Keontae George, Chris Murray, Nick Smith, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Leonard Miller, Kobe Buffkin, Bryce Sensabaugh, Derek Whitehead. Is it Derek?
It's Derek. And
Derek.
It's also Brees, not Bryce.
Bryce. Oh, it's Brees.
Brees.
Okay. Colby Jones. Yeah. Okay. By the way, guys, I should probably introduce you. This is one of my best friends right here. A law student, legal eagle, turned NBA journalist now.
For this weekend, who'd have thought? Look at us. Now,
College basketball lover, Luke Permirza. And we'll continue. Gigi Jackson, Ray Rupert, Bilal Kolobali,
yeah, there you go.
Maxwell Lewis, CD Sissoko, Bobby Clinton, Derek Lively II, Noah Clowney, and then we'll go through the second round later. But let's just go through this. Let me hear your thoughts down below. And Luke, I think first off, people are going to be like, we saw ESPN say Brandon Miller is going second overall because obviously Vic we know.
Yeah.
The first big debate right here is going to be the first one. Who's going second? I say Scoot. The idea of LaMelo Ball and Scoot Henderson is way better. And Brandon Miller, if they're bringing back Miles Bridges and PJ Washington like they say they are, and they already have Gordon Hayward, and I know Gordon Hayward's not a fan favorite, but what are your thoughts right there?
Well, okay, so like, with that being said, like regardless of what Gordon Hayward does, if they're bringing back PJ Washington and Miles Bridges, it doesn't really. I'm not saying that Brandon Miller is a good player, and obviously he'd fit, but it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to take Brandon Miller when you can take a guy who's obviously, by many people's eyes, a better prospect. And in most drafts, we know he'd go number one, but he's not. He's going to be number two, and he's going to fall into the Hornets' lap. And, like, they shouldn't anyway. They should not resist the chance to pair up Scoot and LaMelo Ball in a backcourt. It just doesn't make sense for them to go anywhere else besides best player available this early in the draft.
Brandon Miller and Jabari Smith are completely different players, but they're eerily similar where they're high floor guys. Like, they're safe.
Yeah,
safe.
I think Brandon Miller is a better shot creator than Jabari Smith was this time last year. Yes.
Oh, Brandon Miller to Jabari Smith. I thought you said Scoot.
No.
My apologies.
No.
Yeah.
Compared to Jabari Smith this time last year, Brandon Miller is a better shot creator than Jabari Smith. I think he's a better prospect as a whole than Jabari Smith, but he's not better than Scoot.
Nobody's comparing Brandon Miller to MVP candidates like Russell Westbrook, Derrick Rose, and all NBA player John Morant. Like, while Brandon Miller's being compared more to high levels,
high level 2 or 3 time All-Star.
Yeah,
is what I can see Brandon Miller be. I like him a lot. I enjoyed watching him in Alabama last year, and he was my favorite freshman in this draft. My favorite freshman in all college basketball. But
so let's move on to the next draft. I think Amen Thompson going to the Rockets. That's pretty much a given right there for what we're looking at. And if we go back and let's move down to the first guy that we can see that is really interesting in the sense that we had Taylor Hendricks going at 7, and I think that was where we both agreed maybe that's going to be something that signals them moving on from Miles Turner or just trying to get more front court help because they don't really have a power forward. And Cam Whitmore fits Orlando. Anthony Black, who you and I think is the next Tyrese Haliburton, Josh Giddey type player of the draft class, Steele. Asar going to the Jazz. Dallas takes Grady Dick because there's rebounding and they need shooting. Jet Howard. Out of these picks right here, who do you think's the most potentially surprising, or even you could throw in the other guys that we have down here in Keontae George, Chris Murray, just not to get caught up in then making this like a 20-minute video, but what do you think right here?
So for our draft, as we talked about this in the car, like, we kind of had Taylor Hendricks going a little higher than a lot of other draft boards do. That's just because with that spot for the Pacers, we talked about this. The guys that we had going right after him is Asar and Anthony Black, which doesn't really fit for the Pacers because they already have Ben Mathurin and Tyrese Haliburton. It wouldn't make sense for them to take 2 guys in positions that they already have filled when they could get somebody like Taylor Hendricks,
100%
would be able to slide in next to them. And another thing about Anthony Black is the guy that we have said is our third favorite player in this draft behind Scoot and Wemby.
And in terms of potential, again, Josh Giddey, Tyrese Halliburton, these big point guards that people were somewhat skeptical on.
They're scared of the shot.
Yeah. And as I go back to here, and you're going to notice with Jett Howard, Grady Dick, you can even say Jordan Hawkins, a bunch of these guys, there's kind of a run on shooters. And then even with Keontae George or even Chris Murray, you start to see like Chris Murray being, a Quinn Snyder kind of pick where he has roster decision. I think we're seeing some teams make a decision to go pro-ready guys or just shooters that fit specific needs as we move down the draft. And before you just start to see teams maybe start to take some chances where we see Miami take Leonard Miller. That was a big discussion where we didn't know if they'd take Leonard Miller or Kobe because those were two positions of need for Miami. Jalen Hood-Schifino just seems like a guy who can play multiple positions for the Lakers. Nick Smith slides down because of the knee injuries, and Keontae George fits more what the Pelicans need because they need a combo guard, a guy who can play point guard and shooting guard with Dyson Daniels off the bench. I think really the most surprising guy here is maybe Chris Murray going higher than other places.
That was a Quinn Snyder. That was one that we felt was a Quinn Snyder specialty. That's the only reason why. It's just because at this point in the draft, there isn't a whole lot of difference between like
outside of 5,
a lot of the guys in the
20.
big board. So it's like we know that all these guys are going to go somewhere in this range, but it all depends on personal preference. And that one was a Quinn Snyder experience pick for the Hawks because they know he's probably out of the guys in this section, including everybody from Grady Dick all the way to Brees, he's probably the guy that can help them win the best right now. So it just makes sense for them to take him. Also, another pick that I think could turn out really well in this draft is Nick Smith. He really struggled in Arkansas his year, but this guy was supposed to be the number 1 pick. He was supposed to be a top 5 pick coming out of high school. And repeated injuries all season.
It fits with what the Jazz are doing, loading up on guards and wings.
They already took Asar in this mock draft earlier, so getting a high potential pick who's a top 10 talent who falls to 16, Nick Smith could be a nice pick for the Jazz, and so another one of those Jazz late round steals that just seems to work.
No, I agree with that, and I think once we look over here, you see the Brooklyn Nets. We do a young guy and a pro ready guy, Colby Jones, who's more of a Josh Hart ready guy at 21. Then you get yourself Dariq Whitehead, who's kind of coming off injury,
19.
but 19-3 and 3D. Then we have the Trailblazers. They're out there. They get themselves. Who do we say we got them? Portland.
We had them going Brandon Miller at 3,
and then they get themselves G.G. Jackson to pair with him. That seems nice. Yeah, I know Rain Rupert and Bilal Coulibaly are a bit lower, but these are two guys who are very similar, in terms of size, but they play
it's
different.
It's just guys that Portland probably wouldn't take in this spot.
Yeah, and then you have the Kings, where the Kings would like Rupert, where he seems like he's a bit more ready to make an impact, and he still has a lot higher potential as more.
He's filled into his frame more currently than Coulibaly.
Yeah, he's a smaller Luol Deng. I was saying in the card, kind of like terms of play style, guy who can do multiple twos.
He's got decent playmaking chops for a guy who that wasn't really considered and hasn't really been talked about as one of his strengths, at least from watching tape on him.
And with Dillon Brooks leaving the Grizzlies, Bilal Coulibaly seems like the athletic guy that they would want to replace a guy like Dillon Brooks with.
Yeah, and now he won't play I don't think Coulibaly plays at all. I think he barely plays his rookie year, and he spends most of his time on a 2-way, maybe playing in the G League. But yeah. I think towards the end of the season they might give him a run in at the end of the regular season. Obviously, he won't play in the playoffs.
I agree.
But he's a guy that is their higher upside replacement to Dillon Brooks.
No, I agree. And then you move on to Maxwell Lewis. Pacers.
One thing I will say, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So no, you're 100%.
If they don't go Bilal Coulibaly and they want shooting, they go Maxwell Lewis.
I agree with that. And then I would have the Pacers take Bilal Coulibaly. Yeah. Those could be these 4 picks right here. If it does follow this order, Hornets, Pacers, Grizzlies, Kings, they could all flip-flop picks there, because these are
this is the run that we had on the 6'6", 6'7",
6'5", either athletic
3-and-D potential.
Yeah,
guys.
either some guys are more farther ahead as a defender, another guy's farther ahead as a shooter, or another's farther ahead as an all-around guy.
Like Maxwell Lewis, for example, he's probably the worst potential of these 4
but
guys.
Highest floor.
He has the highest floor because he right now is a sharpshooter.
And CD
he shot 43%
then you have
from 3.
CD or Bilal Coulibaly, who are the 2 highest potentials. Ray and Rupert's probably like the safest bet to like figure out to be some sort of like maybe even like a shorter version. He could be a shorter Kyle Anderson, a more athletic version, a shorter, more athletic Kyle Anderson, or he's gonna be like a Luol Deng.
He's like the mix of these four guys between safe and, you know, high potential. Maxwell Lewis is obviously probably has the least upside of all these guys because you know what you're getting out of him.
Oh, 100%.
But he's a 43% three-point shooter. He's a sniper. And the Pacers in this draft, after what we've had them take already, don't want shooting.
To wrap up the first round, you go with the bigs. Bobby Klintman, kind of a similar, not like at all, but like similar in a way to John Collins. Coming out of college, like all around 4, who probably play 5, fill out of frames. But we don't, I think the big thing is he more of a 4-5 or is he more of a 4-3?
I see people list him like the Athletics. They had him listed in the most recent mock draft as a wing. I don't think that's where he projects.
He's a 4-5.
He's a 4-5 because small ball 5, stretch 4. I just don't think, especially if he goes to Utah, he doesn't fit in at wing because they're not going to play him at wing over Lowry. They're going to probably want him to play next to Kessler in a big lineup or next to Lowry in a small lineup.
No, I agree with that. And then you have to wrap up the first round bigs that like in a different era, you know, they probably might go, and they still could probably go higher. But I see Derek Lively, good, you know, guy, especially if they move on from Miles Turner. They just got Taylor Hendricks, Derek Lively, Isaiah Jackson. You know, they have Stick Smith still.
Derek Lively is another guy that's like Nick Smith. I mean, like, he was supposed to be a top prospect, but even then, like, his style, like, if this was 15 years ago, he would have been number 1 pick even with the injuries.
No,
but
completely.
The injury issues, the fact that, again, he isn't a shooting big guy, he's kind of a relic of a bygone era. And
he's not a super elite shot blocker.
No, he's an elite shot blocker. He averaged like 3 blocks a game in almost 20 minutes. He was like 2.5 blocks.
I must have looked the wrong spot.
He is an elite ring protector. He started the year poorly.
I don't know why. I'm more of a fan of Noah Clowney. I think Noah Clowney pops off the page more to me.
Derek Lively, though, will, like...
I get scared that Derek Lively is like a better defensive version of Jahlil Okafor.
He's a much better defensive version of Jahlil Okafor.
But less offensive game.
Oh, yeah, 100% less offensive game.
It's like the complete opposite.
But he's a better rim-running big guy and a better pick-and-roll big guy than Jahlil Okafor. He reminds me of, like... He's going to have, like, the Clint Capella role on offense, but he's taller. And he isn't as mobile as Clint Capella is. And obviously the injuries are an issue. But I think it's a good pick. If he's still available at the end of the first round, you get a guy who's going to come in and get you like probably, if he pans out, multiple blocks a game. The dude averaged 3 blocks a game in just like 20 minutes of action. He had this game against North Carolina where he had like 8 blocks.
I completely understand that. But let's not make this video any longer than it needs to be. And let's just run through the second round, and then we'll just highlight like 1 or 2 guys that we like right here. James Nnaji, Taquavian Smith are guys you better watch out that probably might sneak into the first. Same thing with Jaime Jaquez. But we have Julian Strawther. Actually, let me have Luke run through this. Luke, let me hear you read through this right here.
Okay, so we went with like, you know, a lot of these guys are the older, more experienced college guys that we didn't think teams would take in the first round, besides Nnaji.
And the picks, if there's like the slash things, just know those are pick swaps, so those could be flip flop. But he's just gonna read off the players by their names and then just look at the team.
So like we've got, I guess I forgot to edit Terrence Shannon. Well, we've got obviously Julian Strawther for the Pistons because the Pistons need shooting. We've got Andre Jackson, he is not really an offensive threat scoring wise, but he was a very effective point forward for UConn last year. When they switched him to point guard, their offense just heated up at the end of the year, and that's why they won the championship. Marcus Sasser, a classic veteran lead guard who will help which either team, the Spurs or the Pacers, gets him. Obviously, James Nnaji, he's 18 or 19. He's the high upside pick in this round. The Hornets...
He's kind of like Ishmael Kamagate of last year's draft class coming out of Paris.
The Hornets are going to take him because the Hornets don't want any of these win-now guys because it doesn't really fit their timeline. They want a high upside guy.
You suck at going at this quick.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, it's hard to go at these quick because all these guys are good players. But yeah, we've got, obviously, Olivier Maxence Prosper from Marquette, Jaquez, Jalen Wilson, and Terrence Shannon is kind of the run on the multiple-year college wings who can kind of shoot. And then we've got a guy, Julian Phillips, a one-and-done kid who maybe didn't pan out as well as he would have hoped, but he's still going to be a high upside pick this late, in the second round, obviously. And then we have
Taquavian
Smith, our guy.
Adam Bona,
another high upside pick for the Wizards in this pick.
Kobe Brown, Jay Crowder mold, Royce O'Neal.
Jay Crowder, veteran. He's an old guy.
I love Podzinski.
This guy I love, Brandon Podziemski. He averaged
Podziemski.
18 and 8 as a guard for Santa Clara last
My
year.
favorite, you know me, Tristan Vucevic.
Tristan Vukovic.
Vukovic.
This is the classic high upside pick in the second round. The Spurs, they've
Draft
already got
stash.
Wemby. They've already got Wemby.
Would he be the Jokic?
He would
Former
be-
Real Madrid, Partizan boy.
Vukovic would be the drafted stash in this draft. High upside, 6'11" big guy,
Hawks get Arthur Kaluma, defensive guy. Trey Alexander,
shooter,
The Lakers,
defensive guy and a shooter.
Omari Moore, kind of like an athletic, defensive guy, probably in the same vein of,
Yeah, he was a volume scorer in college. He was the Mountain West leading scorer and the Conference Player of the Year. He's a great player, but he might be like a low end. Like he's gonna be like a end of the bench 3-and-D guy.
Amari Bailey, you're going for the upside on the athleticism. Trace Jackson Davis, they want a big. You get
Just a
yourself
veteran presence.
Judah Mintz, a good, what was he, 1 and done or 2 year player?
He was a one and done.
One and
He was
done.
a very surprising one and done that they didn't expect would do it.
Jordan Miller's a Torrey Craig.
I mean, he could still come back, but a lot of these guys still could come back. Obviously,
Yeah.
we will be doing another one of these mock drafts in the future because the status of guys like Julian Phillips and Judah Mintz and Adama Sanogo.
How'd you say Nikola Adamson? He's going to replace Naz Reid, but how do you say Nikola Jurisic, Chris
Yeah.
Livingston, Dylan Mitchell, Adam Flagler, and Isaiah Wong right out? But say your closing statements right here. Where you're
So
saying.
before we talk, you want to pull up the mock draft list again real quick to show them what I'm talking about? I've got to highlight some guys that I think probably won't be in this draft by this time next year. I think the guys that have the most likely to gain by staying, or at least they will think that they will, a guy like Judah Mintz, I think he probably ends up staying, and I think he's because he entered the transfer portal and declared for the draft, just like another guy that I think might stay, Julian Phillips, although he's more likely to leave, I think. And another guy that may stay is Kevin McCullough, just to come back an extra year to play for Kansas. I don't know if that's going to happen, and another guy, Brandon Podziemski, I believe he also entered the transfer portal. But he is less likely to stay, I think, than Julian Phillips and Judah Mintz. I think those guys, and maybe Adama Sanogo if he wants to try to go back-to-back with UConn. This is still very tentative.
I really think right here, though, Tristan Vukovic is I hate to say it, obviously there'd ever be a Jokic, but a Jokic, Brogdon, second round pick.
I was just going to say.
Did Jokic come immediately over when he got drafted, or did he wait a year?
Jokic waited a year.
You shouldn't touch the microphone.
Oh, my bad. I'm just fixing it.
But
Jokic came over, I think, a year after.
I could see Vuk being that type of guy.
Maybe.
Obviously, I'm not going to say he's an MVP guy, but he could come in and be an all-star.
He definitely won't play much his rookie year if he comes right over, and which he probably won't do.
But that's it.
Yeah, rough mock draft. This draft is going to be very interesting, and I do think we will see some trades. We will see a team in the top 10 trade back.
No, I 100%
We
agree.
100% will. I just don't know who yet, and we just don't know what the buzz is yet.
No, completely, and that's the interesting part about this is once we kind of get an idea of all this, especially after the combine, I think we'll have a better grasp of what's going to happen. But that's it for us. If you guys did stick around this far, you might as well just like and subscribe. We're on the way to 20,000 subscribers. We're going to have more draft stuff later this day and tomorrow. Have a great one, guys.